Last month, I discovered an abandoned school in the Midwest that still haunts my thoughts. I'm 32 and work as a freelance photographer. I needed something fresh for my portfolio. I thought exploring haunted places might spark some inspiration. I felt excited, but also a bit nervous because I had never really done anything like this before. I arrived at the old school on the edge of town. It was a crumbling brick building with broken windows and weeds taking over the yard. When I stepped inside, it was quiet, just me and the silence. I wasn't too sure what I expected, but the eerie beauty of the place drew me in. I aimed my camera and snapped photos of faded murals and dusty desks. I thought I could catch its essence in my own way. On my first day, I noticed something odd. I found a stack of old notes tucked into a classroom desk. They were written by students, I think. They talked about strange sounds and eerie sightings, laughter echoing in the halls, shadowy figures lurking, and something terrible that had happened there. My heart raced a little reading them. I thought they were just kids trying to scare one another, but I couldn't shake off that chill creeping down my spine. The next day, I returned, still curious. As I walked through the empty halls, the atmosphere felt heavier, almost like a weight on my chest. It might have been my imagination, but then I heard something, light footsteps or maybe whispers. I quickly turned around, but there was nothing. I brushed it off as my mind playing tricks. I went back again, and each visit left me feeling tenser. The sounds grew louder. I started hearing creaking doors that seemed to open by themselves. Shadows darted out of the corners of my eyes, but when I turned, I found only empty rooms. The temperature dropped, making me feel cold and uneasy. I began to wonder if this was such a good idea. I couldn't tell what was real and what was in my head. Was I imagining it all? Or was something connected here with the school's past? My heart raced as I thought about each incident. I felt like I was losing my grip on reality. Then, one afternoon, I stood in the hallway when I froze. There was a small figure at the end of the corridor in faded clothes. I asked if he was okay, but he didn't respond. My heart raced. I blinked, and when I looked again, he was gone. Maybe I should have left then. Something felt very wrong, but my curiosity kept pulling me back. As I turned to leave, I heard a whisper that sent chills down my spine. Stay. Now, even when I'm far from that school, I can't shake off the feeling that something still lingers there, waiting for me to return. The photos I took don't feel complete, and I wonder what else I might find if I go back. The next day, I made my decision. I had to go back to the school. The whispers still echoed in my head. Stay. Couldn't ignore it. My curiosity had turned into an obsession. I felt like I had to uncover the story behind that figure and the notes. As I drove back, the air was thick with tension. I packed my gear, ready to take more photos but also to dig deeper. I arrived just as the sun began to dip below the horizon. The school's outline was even more menacing against the twilight sky. I took a deep breath and stepped inside. I kept my camera close, noticing how the light shifted in the fading day. The school felt like a living entity, breathing with every creak and groan. I felt drawn to the classrooms again, as if they were calling me. I headed straight for the one where I found the notes last time. When I entered, it was eerily still. The shadows seemed longer, stretching across the room. I searched through more desks, hoping to find additional notes or clues. Then I spotted something shiny under a pile of papers. It was a small brass key. My heart raced as I picked it up. What could it open? As I examined the key, I heard it again, soft laughter, muffled and distant. It floated through the air, teasing. It sent shivers down my spine. I glanced around the room, half expecting to see the small figure standing there again. But there was nothing. Just me and the whispers of the past. I made my way out of the classroom, feeling the temperature drop, each breath visible in the cold. I knew there were other rooms I hadn't explored fully. I needed to find them. My feet moved on their own accord toward a door at the end of the hallway. It was slightly ajar. I hesitated, but the laughter grew louder, pulling me in. The room was dark, filled with shadows. I flicked my flashlight on and illuminated the space. It was a small storage room. Old textbooks, boxes, and my breath hitched. What looked like an old playground toy sat in one corner. It was a rocking horse, faded and chipped. Something about it felt wrong. A deep sense of foreboding washed over me as I stepped closer. I noticed strange markings on the wall, scratches that looked like they had been made by small hands. My pulse quickened. This was no ordinary storage room. Someone had spent time here, perhaps frightened, perhaps trapped. I felt the weight of their presence in the air. Suddenly, a loud bang echoed from behind me. I swung around, my heart hammering. The door I had entered through slammed shut. I rushed to it, but it wouldn't budge. Panic crept in. "Let me out!" I shouted, hitting the door. But silence enveloped me. The laughter intensified, now right behind me. I turned slowly, and when I saw it. The small figure, just as I had seen before, standing beside the rocking horse, staring at me with wide, dark eyes. The room felt suffocating, and I knew I had to escape. But where was the key supposed to fit? And why was he there? My questions grew, tangled in fear and uncertainty. I needed a way out, and fast. With renewed urgency, I fumbled with the key. This wasn't just about the photographs anymore. It was about getting away from this nightmare. The figure's gaze pinned me in place. My instincts screamed at me to run, but I was frozen. The laughter stopped, replaced by a heavy silence. My fingers tightened around the key, its cool metal grounding me. But all it did was intensify my fear. "Who are you?" I whispered, half expecting an answer. The figure didn't move or acknowledge me in any way. It remained motionless, its dark eyes penetrating. I swallowed hard, stepping back, feeling the cold wall against my back. The rocking horse creaked softly, as if it could sense my tension, that I had to find a way out. The door was still unyielding. I turned the key over in my hand, searching for any sign of a lock. I couldn't just stand there. I looked around the room, trying to shake the paralysis. "Think," I told myself. Then I spotted it. A small, old-fashioned chest sat in the corner, buried beneath a dust-covered tarp. My heart raced at the chance of what could be inside. Maybe the key would fit there. I moved closer, my feet pounding against the floor, breaking the silence as I lifted the tarp. I felt a chill brush past my neck. I turned fast, glancing back at the figure, but it remained rooted to the spot. I took a shaky breath and directed my attention to the chest. It had an intricate lock that looked just the right size. I carefully moved the key toward the lock, praying it would turn. I inserted it slowly, holding my breath, and twisted. It clicked open, and a rush of air escaped the chest as I lifted the lid. Inside were bundles of old papers, worn-out books, and a small, tattered teddy bear. The sight made my stomach drop. I reached in, pulling out a few papers, trying to decipher anything. The first sheet was a child's drawing, vivid in its simplicity. It depicted a girl with a wide smile holding hands with an unseen friend. But there was something odd about it. The girl had no face. Chills ran down my spine as I continued flipping through the pages. More drawings followed, all featuring the same faceless girl. Under each drawing was a name. I read the last name. I heard another noise behind me, a scraping sound. My heart racing again, I turned. The small figure had taken a step closer, 1 foot now in the circle of light from my flashlight. I froze, feeling the pulse of terror rising. "Mia?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. The figure's eyes widened, a flicker of recognition flashing briefly across its face. Before I could react, the lights flickered and went out. I was plunged into darkness, the flashlight struggling to illuminate anything. I could hear footsteps now, soft yet deliberate, closing in. I scrambled backward against the wall, a pit growing in my stomach. Then, I felt something brush against my leg, a small, cold hand. I gasped and swung the flashlight wildly, desperate to illuminate the space. What was happening? That's when I heard it, a voice, soft and shaky. "Help me." My heart raced as the panic set in. I needed to get out, but the darkness was alive now. Alive with whispers, laughter, and a presence I couldn't fully understand. I felt trapped, but I couldn't afford to lose hope. I needed to find Mia or whoever this was. My next move could be the only chance I had left. The darkness enveloped me like a heavy blanket. I struggled to calm my breathing, but every sound sent tremors through my body. "Help me." The voice echoed in my mind, wrapping around my nerves. I had to respond. I had to find the source, but how? I turned back to the chest, fumbling for anything useful amidst the chaos of old papers. I gripped the flashlight, its beam now flickering more than ever. The darkness felt thick, an entity unto itself, wrapping around me as I scanned the room. "Mia?" I called again, my voice steadier this time. "Where are you?" A soft sob broke through the silence. Felt close, yet I couldn't see anything. I stepped forward, hesitant, knowing I was moving toward a danger I couldn't comprehend. "I'm here to help you, just tell me what you need," I pleaded. Suddenly, the flashlight burst to life for a brief moment, illuminating the corner where the figure had stood. But it was gone. Heart racing, I spun around twice, searching the dark corners of the room. Had it moved, or was it hiding? The sob sounded again, a chilling sound that tugged at something deep inside me. Holding the flashlight out in front of me, I pressed on, inching toward the sound. "Mia?" I whispered again, desperate for a response. Finally, I found her, a small shape huddled behind a rotten bookshelf. The slightest glimmer of hope pushed through my despair. It was a child, her hair a mess and her dress tattered. Her face was pale and streaked with tears. "Please," she whimpered. I dropped to my knees in front of her. "I'm here. I'm going to help you. Just come with me." But she only shook her head, her wide eyes locking onto something behind me. I followed her gaze, dread coiling in my gut. The figure was back, standing just outside the flickering light, watching us with an intensity that made it hard to breathe. "Mia, we need to go. Now," I urged, scrambling to reach towards her. But before I could grab her hand, she screamed and darted further back into the shadows. "Mia, wait!" I shouted, forcing myself to stand. I was terrified, but I refused to leave her behind. I pushed forward, the light dancing wildly in my hands. "I need you to trust me." I could barely feel the cold air around me, but the whispers intensified. They filled the room with chaotic laughter, urging me back, sending electric jolts of fear through my limbs. The figure took a step closer, the darkness around it shifting and swirling as if alive. Just when the air seemed to ignite with tension, I heard another voice, clear and unsettling. "You shouldn't have come here." It slammed into me like a punch. I had to think. There had to be something in those drawings, something that connected to Mia. The key. I rattled it in my pocket, hoping the promise it held wasn't just a cruel trick. But before I could react, the room trembled, and everything went cold. I had lost sight of Mia in the chaos. Panic surged like a wild river. "Mia!" I cried out, clawing at the darkness, lost in fear and confusion. I couldn't afford to allow myself to be consumed. I had to find her or risk losing us both. Then everything shifted again, and the darkness closed in around me tighter than ever, threatening to swallow my cries. The only question was whether I'd find Mia before it was too late. I felt the darkness pressing against me, heavy and suffocating. My breath came in shallow bursts as I steadied myself, straining to hear any sign of Mia. The whispers were relentless, swirling around me like a fog that wouldn't lift. "Mia!" I called again, my voice ragged. No answer came. I had to move. I inched forward, the beam of my flashlight flickering but illuminating enough to show the twisted shadows of furniture and debris. Every creak sounded like a warning. Then I saw it, a silhouette darting across the room. My heart raced. "Mia!" I shouted, chasing after it without a second thought. The figure was small, just like her. I had to catch her before she disappeared again. I stumbled over a broken chair, barely managing to keep my footing. "Stay where you are," I yelled, the tone more authoritative than I felt. As I continued through the room, the sobs turned to muffled cries, echoing off the walls, and my fight-or-flight instincts kicked in. But the closer I got, the more the shadows shifted. It was as if the darkness was alive, pushing back against me. I could feel a cold wind swirling, pulling at my clothes and urging me to turn back. I raised my flashlight higher, desperate for a glimpse of Mia and that wretched figure that loomed just beyond the light. And then, in one fleeting moment, the flashlight shone on a door I hadn't noticed before. It stood ajar, hinting at an escape or worse. I hesitated, the hairs on my neck prickling. What lay beyond? With a deep breath, I approached the door, feeling its cool metal handle under my fingers. Mia! I screamed one last time, hoping she would spring forward into the light. Silence responded, heavy and foreboding. I had to make a decision. I swung the door open, bracing myself for what lay ahead. The room beyond was dark yet spacious, the air thick with an eerie stillness. But then I caught sight of her, a small form huddled in the corner, just like before, face hidden in her arms. My heart surged with mixed relief and dread. I found you. I started rushing toward her, but my foot slipped, sending me crashing to the ground. As I hit the floor, the door slammed shut behind me with a deafening bang. I spun around, my mind racing. Panic surged once more. I was trapped, cut off from the world I had known moments before. Mia? I called again, my voice trembling. The whispers returned, but now they were accompanied by another sound, the faint melody of a lullaby, sweet yet haunting. I turned back to the girl, who looked up at me with terrified eyes. Don't listen to it, she whispered, her voice barely audible. It wants to take you too. Before I could ask what she meant, I felt a cold breeze wash over me. The shadows in the room began to elongate, creeping toward us like monstrous hands. I reached for Mia, but she flinched back against the wall. Please, I begged. I just want to help you. But the lullaby grew louder, swirling around me, enfolding me in its grasp. I closed my eyes, fighting the urge to succumb to its charm. When I felt it, a shift in the air, the darkness thickening around us. Something was coming. In that moment, I realized I had to act. If I didn't confront whatever was waiting in the shadows, the darkness would claim us both. The only question was how to fight an enemy I couldn't see. I took a deep breath, pushing myself to focus. Mia, we have to get out of here. My voice cut through the lullaby for just a moment. I moved closer to her, despite the shadows creeping menacingly between us. What is it? What does it want? Mia's eyes were wide with fear, glistening in the dimness. It wants to lull you to sleep, she whispered, just like it did to me. Her words sent a chill down my spine. What had she experienced in this place? The shadowy forms wrapped around the edges of the room like tendrils, pulsating with a dark life of their own. I took another step forward, heart pounding. Mia, we have to run. Suddenly, there was a cold laugh that echoed just beyond the shadows, sending tremors through my body. Let her stay, it jeered, a harsh rasp that made me want to cover my ears. She belongs to me now. No, I shouted, and the air around me buzzed as if it had reacted to my defiance. When I turned to Mia again, she was trembling, her face twisted in pain. You don't understand, she cried. It's too late for me. I felt a surge of determination wash over me. No, it's not too late. You can fight it. I reached out, but the shadows shifted, blocking the path between us. They seemed alive, snaking toward Mia, and I couldn't let them take her. I thought back to the flashlight. It might be our only weapon against whatever was in the darkness. I flicked it on, directing the beam toward the shadows, and gasped at what I saw. They recoiled slightly, almost hissing at the light. I stepped forward, emboldened. Mia, I called again, keeping the flashlight trained on the shadows, trying to keep them at bay. Come on, trust me. With a hesitant movement, she crawled toward me, still cautious of the creeping darkness. Her eyes darted nervously, but she seemed to sense the urgency in my voice. I can't hold it back for long, I warned, my own fear rushing in at the thought of failure. If the shadows enveloped her. Suddenly, the lullaby reached a piercing crescendo, and the shadows surged forward, dark fingers snapping at the air between us. My heart raced. I knew that if I didn't act quickly, we'd both be lost. I positioned the flashlight like a sword, ready to fight. That S when I saw it, a flicker of movement behind the wall of darkness. Something was watching us. Something with eyes like burning coals. "Mia, back!" I yelled, and raised the flashlight higher, aimed at the center of the swirling shadows. "I won't let you take her." The shadows twitched, as if considering retreat. But then the laughter returned, louder and more mocking, reverberating through the room. "You think light will save you? You're in my realm now," it sneered. A violent wind rushed through the room, knocking me off balance. I stumbled, the beam of the flashlight wavering, and I realized I was losing ground. Panic clawed its way up my throat. At that moment I knew I had to confront this entity. With every ounce of courage, I shouted into the darkness, "I know you're there. Show yourself." The shadows recoiled once more, and I caught a glimpse of the figure forming within them, a tall, jagged shape that seemed part shadow, part nightmare. My stomach twisted. I had awoken something far worse than I anticipated. Yet as fear gripped my heart, I understood one thing. I wasn't going to let it take Mia. Not now. Not ever. I stood my ground, adrenaline fueling my defiance. The tall figure swirled within the darkness, its edges shifting and flickering, almost like a mirage. "What do you want from us?" I shouted, determined not to display weakness. The entity tilted its head, a collection of eyes within darkness meeting mine. My heart thundered, but I forced myself to remain steady. My flashlight wavered, but I gripped it tighter, knowing it could push back the shadows if only for a moment longer. "Your little friend?" A hissed voice like ice scraping stone. "She's mine to keep. Mia is not yours," I shouted, my voice rising in pitch. "You can't have her." The shadows pulsed, reacting to my words as if they understood the urgency behind them. "Mia, fight it." I turned back, desperate to reach her. She was still on the ground, clutching her head as if she were in pain. "You have to fight." In that fleeting moment, I could see the conflict on her face. I don't know if I can," she moaned, tears streaming down her cheeks. Each drop glimmered in the flashlight's beam like tiny stars, illuminating her struggle. It was a haunting reminder that the darkness pressed hard against her resolve. The entity's laughter echoed again, a low rumble that threatened to engulf us. "There is no escape, dear child," it mocked. "One way or another she will rest." Suddenly, I felt the shadows pull closer, curling around Mia's legs like vines. "No, no, no." I fumbled, moving in front of her, desperately positioning my body to shield her. The beam from my flashlight flickered as the shadows hissed, drawing back momentarily. But I knew I couldn't hold them back forever. I recalled stories about old-school legend schools with dark histories of despair and restless spirits. The very air around us felt heavy with those memories. "Mia," I yelled, urgency blasting through me. "You have to think of something that anchors you, something strong." She blinked rapidly, fear giving way to a flicker of determination. "My brother. He always said to hold on to what you love." The shadows squeezed tighter, and I saw a flicker of strength return as she clenched her fists. As she whispered his name, the shadows recoiled slightly, almost as if they were unsettled. I took a chance. "Yes. Think of him. Fight back." A moment later, she squeezed her eyes shut, focusing hard. "I'm not afraid," she shouted, unleashing a burst of energy. The shadows thrashed angrily, hissing louder than before. "Foolish child," the entity growled, fury drenching its voice. The dark fingers withdrew momentarily as if anticipating a strike. I felt a surge of hope. "We can do this, Mia. Together." We stood side by side now, flashlight beams intersecting, illuminating the darkness around us. It was a meager light, yet I felt its strength. But just as I thought we had gained a foothold, the walls shuddered violently. The shadows surged forward, overwhelming in their numbers. I stumbled again, the beam flickering wildly. Then everything went dark. The flashlight flickered, and for a split second, I stood in total blackness. Panic roared within me, but I fought it back. My eyes strained to adjust, searching. "Mia?" I called, my voice trembling. Couldn't hear her. I couldn't even see the outlines of the shadows. An unsettling chill crept up my spine. I concocted a plan, but I had to act fast. This wasn't over yet. I had to find her and bring her back. Desperation surged through me as I fumbled for the flashlight on the ground. That shadowed figure haunted the edge of my mind. I could feel it creeping closer as I fought to regain control. "Mia!" I shouted again, my voice steady but frantic. "Stay with me, please." In that thick silence, her reply would determine everything. The darkness pressed down like a weight on my chest, smothering the air around me. I fumbled for the flashlight, my fingers trembling as I gripped it tightly again. The brief flicker of light returned, cutting through the thick shadows in a small circle around me. But the sight left me unsettled. "Mia!" I shouted again, my heart racing. The silence was oppressive, and desperation clawed at my throat. Where was she? I couldn't lose her to whatever was lurking in these shadows. As I turned in a slow circle, the darkness seemed alive, shifting and swirling. The faint hiss of the unseen presence whispered around me, colder now, as if it was smelling fear and growing bolder. "You shouldn't have come here," it taunted, the voice echoing like chilling wind. I clenched my fists, trying to suppress my rising terror. "Show yourself," I demanded, my voice echoing with more courage than I felt. The shadows kicked up around me, swirling violently, and in that motion, I caught a glimpse. That tall figure from before, wreathed in darkness, materialized in the corner of the room. The eyes shifted, tracking me. "Let Mia go," I shouted, my throat tightening. "She's not yours to claim." I didn't know what would happen if it refused, but I couldn't back down now. Suddenly, I heard her. "I'm here." Her voice came from somewhere behind me, wavering but real. Relief flooded through me like fire, igniting my resolve. I spun around, illuminating the area with the beam of the flashlight. "Mia!" I shouted back, trying to fix my focus on her. She was on her feet, swaying like a leaf caught in a storm. But the shadows swirled around her, as if trying to pull her back down. Panic shot through me again. "Fight it!" I yelled. "Think of your brother." "No," she cried out, tears streaking her face. "I can't. It hurts so much." The entity laughed softly, its breath a cold whisper that sent shivers down my spine. "Mia, you're stronger than this. Remember him. You have the power." I pleaded, hoping my words would reach her. The shadows wrapped around her tighter, but I pressed on. In that moment, I noticed something odd about the shadows gripping her. They flickered as if they were losing their grip. I felt a spark of hope. "You can do it. Just from the love. Mia, bring it forward." Her eyes flashed with something new, something fierce. "I won't let you take me," she shouted as if stealing the darkness' power for herself. She took a deep breath and focused, trying to channel. The entity screeched, the sound tearing through the silence like glass shattering. The shadows recoiled from her, darting back like a frightened animal. But as Mia pushed back, the walls shuddered again, and a terrible cracking noise filled the air. The ground beneath us trembled like the world was splitting apart. I fought the urge to lose control, holding the flashlight steady to illuminate Mia's brave stance. Then the shadows surged back with renewed force, and I knew they were angry. They twisted into long fingers, reaching for us like icy tendrils. "You will regret this," the entity spat. I quickly scanned our surroundings. In the chaos, I spotted something behind the creature, something glimmering faintly. An object? "Mia, look!" Behind the entity. Just as I pointed, another shudder ripped through the room, and the lights flickered weakly. That's when everything changed. I saw the glimmer accelerate toward us, and in that instant, I realized it wasn't just a light. It was something more, something that could either save us or doom us entirely. "Mia!" I shouted, desperate now. "We need to move." I grabbed Mia's hand, pulling her toward the glimmering light that was rushing at us. "This way," I called, the shadows still clawing at us from behind. The air crackled with tension, and I could feel their fury radiating outward. Mia stumbled, but I didn't let go. "Focus on the light," I urged, My voice strained. As we sprinted toward it, the shadows snapped at our heels, their chilling grip just inches away. The light brightened, and suddenly it filled the room, overpowering the darkness. We reached the edge, and I could see it was a crystal, maybe a pendant, glowing with a vibrant energy. It hung in midair, pulsating like it was alive. "Grab it!" I yelled. Mia reached for the crystal, her fingers trembling, and as she did, a shockwave rippled through the shadows. They recoiled, shrieking as the light exploded outward, illuminating every corner of the room. But just as Mia's fingers brushed the crystal, the dark figure lunged forward, its features more pronounced now. I could see the anger twisting its form, the eyes burning like coals. "You think you can defeat me with a mere trinket? You will pay for this." The entire structure shook, the walls cracking further. Fear crept in again. "Mia, don't think. Just grab it," I yelled, holding her gaze. She nodded, her expression shifting to one of determination. With a fierce grip, she clasped the crystal tightly. In that moment, a wave of warmth enveloped us, pushing back the encroaching shadows. The entity howled, the sound echoing like the roar of a storm. "No, you can't control it." Suddenly, the crystal flared with blinding light, and I felt something shift in the air. The shadows writhed, changing shape, as if they were made of smoke being sucked into a vacuum. "Mia," I shouted over the chaos. "Focus your energy. Use it." With a roar of defiance, she held the crystal high, and suddenly the shadows began to dissipate. I watched in awe as they collapsed like a house of cards, sucked into the radiant force she unleashed. But just then, a dark tendril shot toward us from the corners of the room. I gasped, moving to shield Mia. "No!" I shouted, panic surging again. The tendril struck, wrapping around my wrist like ice. I cried out, fear surging through every vein in my body as it pulled me back into the darkness. "Mia, help!" I gasped, struggling against it, but the grip was unyielding, dragging me toward the shadowy abyss. "Mia!" I screamed, her face lighting up with horror as she turned to me. The pendulum of hope swung dramatically. I felt my courage fading along with the light. Then I remembered the gleam of the crystal and her resolve. "You have to fight it. You're not alone." New energy sparked in her eyes, but would it be enough? Would she save me, or would I be lost to the shadows forever? Hope flickered like a candle's flame, but the darkness loomed closer. With that thought, the world around me dimmed, and I braced for what came next. A powerful wave surged through the air, shaking the very foundation of the room. As the shadows thickened, I could feel them clinging to me like a vice, but I also sensed Mia's spirit rising within the chaos. "I'm here," she cried, her voice piercing through the turmoil. Just when I thought I was lost, I felt a sudden release, as if a door swung open to allow the light to pour in. "Grab the crystal," I shouted, fighting against the tendril-esque grip. Mia, with her small frame taut with resolve, reached skyward, the pendant glowing stronger. Her hand closed around it, and a torrent of brightness emanated from her, bathing the room in a brilliant light. The entity writhed in agony, its form rippling like smoke in a storm. "You think you can escape?" it howled, its voice mingling with a cacophony of whispers and laughter, the very embodiment of despair clawing for my focus. But Mia was no longer afraid. She took a deep breath, grounding herself in the love she had for her brother and her memories. She shouted, "You're not in control here." The words rolled through the air, gaining strength until they transformed into a roar resonating off the walls. The shadow uncoiled, momentarily caught off guard. With newfound courage, she pointed the crystal forward. The radiance expanded, enveloping me in warmth. The shadows screamed, their forms distorting as they drew back, their whispers turning into screeches of anger, clawing at Mia's resolve but failing to breach the light surrounding her. "Stand strong," I urged. Together, emboldened, Mia clenched the crystal tightly and whispered something that reverberated deep within me. I understood the power of connection, how love could repel fear and darkness, how we could face this force if we stood united. With fierce determination, I added my voice to hers. You can't take her. She belongs to the light and love, not to you. The shadows cringed in response, their mass swelling and contorting. But Mia's radiance grew brighter. Suddenly, a blinding flash erupted from the crystal, consuming the room in brightness. The shadows instinctively recoiled. I felt their grip loosening, the cold tendril around my wrist releasing like steam evaporating in sunlight. I stumbled back into the light, nearly falling as the floor shifted beneath me. The shadows began to dissolve, twisting into nothingness before our eyes, their shrieks fading into the background like echoes of distant storms. "It's working," I shouted, a rush of hope surging through me. But in the leftover fragments of darkness, I spotted the figure, the entity struggling to maintain its form. "You will never get rid of me," it seethed with a voice dripping venom. The remaining shadows coalesced around it, attempting to form a defense against Mia's light, but with each second they grew weaker. "Keep pushing," I encouraged. "Don't let up." As I held on to hope, the silhouette of the figure began to flicker, its form unstable. Mia focused harder, her light pulsing with energy, filling the room until it started to feel alive with warmth and promise. In one mighty surge, she shouted, "You don't belong here. We are free." As her words hung in the air, the last remnants of the shadows fractured, revealing the warmth of our reality once again. I shielded my eyes, the light dazzling, and then all at once, it surged forward. The shadows screeched one last time, but their cries began to fade, dissolving into whispers that echoed back into the void. It was as if the room itself had shaken free from a great weight. Finally, silence enveloped us. I blinked against the brightness, still holding on to the surviving thread of reality. Mia stood beside me, the crystal still aglow in her hands, its light diminishing but not extinguished. "Mia, you did it." My heart swelled with relief, but fear lingered, haunting the edges of my mind. What had we truly faced? The memories of fear clung to us like cobwebs, and I could still feel the lingering essence of unease. But as I looked at Mia, the chill of the past began to melt away. "You fought it off," I reassured both her and myself. "You're free now." She nodded, tears glistening in her eyes but mixed with a spark of something indomitable. There were questions lingering unspoken between us about the darkness, the entity, and if it could truly be gone forever. As we turned toward the exit, a weight lifted off my shoulders, but still the shadows of doubt remained. I looked back at the room one last time, feeling a shift in the air, and I couldn't help but wonder, with the horrors behind us and the light before us, had we truly escaped? I moved back into the world outside, sunlight bathing my worn clothes, leaving the school and its secrets behind. But even in the safety of daylight, questions remained drifting in my mind like wisps of the very shadows we had just defeated. Would it return? Did it really leave? And was I really free? As we walked away, I couldn't shake off the feeling that the darkness had merely receded. Sometimes, even when the fight is over, the remnants linger, waiting just beneath the surface unanswered, ambiguous, veiled in shadows.